All your guys is out upstream. Upstream coming. I cannot hear you. I don't policeman, man. I cannot hear you. Hi. All your guys is out. Uncensored lanes out. Thank you.
Wow.
That guy's bleeding, bro. Why don't they help him, bro? He's bleeding his brains out, man.
You're good. Yes, sir. We're turning a lot of the cars around.
Did they catch the dude?
I don't know. Cars coming back. They're holding right now, so everybody can be safe.
Sorry, the joke. Who shoot it?
They were inside shooting somebody.
Just leave from here 2 minutes ago. What the fuck? 2 fucking minutes ago. I wasn't inside.
Inside.
Man,
Yeah. Yeah.
Did he catch his ass?
That's what nobody knows.
Get the fuck out of here. This is somebody got shot in the head?
No, just in the arm, that's it.
Yeah. We told him about the situation and he still kept going. There's a way girl coming to them, but they're blocking their traffic. Nobody could come there. Copy. Alright. What's up with traffic, right? Just in the traffic for BSO and right one side.
Fox News alert, and a frightening situation underway right now at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport in Broward County, Florida. Reports of shots fired in one of the terminals. We've seen areas
just coming in, reports of shots fired at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. We don't know if there are any victims. We are hearing this coming from a tweet from Ari Fleischer saying, I'm at the Fort Lauderdale airport. Shots have been fired. Everyone is running. Again, this is former George W. Bush press secretary Ari Fleischer reporting this. I want to take you to our local...
All of this, as we said before, though there was an active shooter call put out, it's been learned that the suspect has been taken into custody. The very, very unsettling news in all this, from what we're hearing, is that there are victims. There were shots fired. We're hearing on the outside of Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. We know that a lot of the activity centers around the northern side of the airport, as Ralph said, the areas of Gates 4 and Gates 5.
Let's talk a little bit about the fact that the airport itself says this is ongoing, and we're sort of piecing this together. Steve Rogers, former FBI task force member, is on the phone. So, Steve, as the picture comes together for us all at about the same time, it's our understanding that there was some sort of incident that happened either at the taxi area, which is often right outside the baggage claim, where people are picking up their bags and moving out to get picked up to leave the airport. We only know from our affiliate that the shooter has been contained, but what that means exactly, we don't know. We don't know the extent of injuries. What is the priority for law enforcement right now?
Well, right now, they have shut down those terminals. There's no one going to be leaving that terminal at all, or any of those areas at all, until everyone is checked out by the police. I can tell you right now that they're probably concerned about maybe other suspects. They want to make sure that there's not just one shooter contained. If there are other people involved, they're going to look for them. And very, very important right now is the video footage that they are probably looking at now as we're speaking, to see what went on, how it went on, how this thing came down. We're talking about the baggage area. We don't know if something was put on one of those conveyor belts, if something came off the aircraft. So it's so soon to assume anything, but I'll tell you this, the police got that whole place tightened up. No one's going to be coming or going out of those terminals.
And it's unfortunate in this day and age that every time something like this happens, we have to inquire about the prospects of terrorism. We know that terrorists have attacked airports in Turkey, for instance, and you have to wonder whether that's part of the plan here.
Well, you're absolutely right. And look, and not only myself, but many people in the intelligence community have said for many, many months, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And whether it be a terrorist connected with an international connection or a homegrown terrorist, terrorism is terrorism. Now, saying that, we're beginning to realize, because we've seen this happen in malls, we've seen this happen in airports, that we're going to have to change our rules of engagement regarding law enforcement. There has to be a tremendous high visibility of uniformed officers in all of these public places. These are soft targets. We hear time and again, well, we don't have the money to put police personnel and dogs here or there. We're going to have to do it. It's either going to be we're going to spend money or we're going to spend lives. But what we're going to have to do is ensure that we're doing the best we could to protect the people. Now, that doesn't mean a lone gunman or some maniac is going to come in and begin to cause havoc. But what it does mean, it'll certainly minimize the possibility of something happening. Yeah. So we're going to have to change the rules of engagement.
I don't want to jump the gun. We don't know what the situation is here. We understand that the shots were fired near the area of the taxi stand. You know, driving a cab can be a stressful occupation, and sometimes one guy has a beef with another and pulls out a gun. You don't know what happened here, but it's obviously frightened those passengers who are now well out onto the tarmac, being sort of held in a pen there at Fort Lauderdale International Airport.
It might be confusing to our viewers, John. I know it was the first time that I heard it, that eyewitness accounts can sometimes be the most misleading, and you have to be very careful. And that seems counterintuitive, because you think an eyewitness would see everything. That's why you call them an eyewitness. As we take a look again at Fort Lauderdale Airport, where the shooting took place. What we are seeing at this time are reports that the number of injured has gone up. So I want to be careful with these numbers. We don't know them yet. I did mention that the initial reports placed it around a handful of people with injuries. Now we're seeing it move up a little bit more. And when we don't have confirmation of the precise number, I hesitate sharing that. But according to the airport, an ongoing situation. So we quite frankly, Steve, don't know whether or not this is over yet. According to one report, I should also mention that, again, we're just going through a few different reports here. Our affiliate says the shooter's contained. Another report says the shooter's in custody. We're going to try to work it out. Rod Wheeler's with us, a former D.C. homicide detective. He joins us by phone. And interesting, Rod, here we're watching on live television. You see a plane land, because if you're in the air, you got to land. But the folks on the plane have no idea what sort of situation they're landing to.
Exactly. And you know what? This is still a very fluid situation. And I was just listening to when you said the police had the suspect contained. Now, some viewers may be saying, well, what does that mean? That means that the threat itself may have been taken out right now. The individual has been surrounded, probably in custody. We don't know that yet. This is still a very fluid situation. So what happens at airports is that when the airport police notify the authorities, the FTA and the authorities there, what's going to happen is all flights coming in and going out of the airport are put on hold at that point. And that way, no one can come in, no one can get out until they get the situation under control.
Well, talk about getting the situation under control. I mean, that's got to be, from an investigator standpoint, sort of the worst possible scenario. You've got thousands and thousands of people, some of whom are arriving, some of whom are trying to leave, and you're trying to figure out who the gunman is, who got shot, who the target was. I mean, from the standpoint of a police investigator, Rod, it's got to be a nightmare scenario.
Well, it is, but I'll tell you one thing, John. We do train, law enforcement train for these situations quite often. And I'll tell you, you make a very good point in terms of air traffic coming in and air traffic going out. Until the situation is really under control, meaning they have the suspect in custody and there's no other threat. See, that's the other thing you have to worry about with these types of situations. You may have a person surrounded. You may have a person in custody, but there still may be other threats there at the airport. It could be in the form of a bomb. It could be a vehicle. We don't know. So what they're going to do right now, they're trying to check out this person that they have contained, make sure that there's no other threats to the passengers or to the people that's living in that area, John.
Again, this is going to have ripple effects on the air transportation situation nationwide. JetBlue is the biggest airline serving the Fort Lauderdale International Airport. About 23% of the flights in and out of there are JetBlue flights. So if you're elsewhere in the country and you think this does not affect you, but you're planning on taking a JetBlue flight today, you might want to check on the departure time, because this is going to slow down that airline significantly and a number of others as well.
This is an ABC News special report. Now reporting, David Muir.
Good afternoon from ABC News headquarters in New York, where we are following breaking news coming in out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida at this hour. These are aerial pictures at the Fort Lauderdale airport, where a short time ago we learned of a shooting incident inside the airport. It's our understanding it was in Terminal 2, the baggage claim area, that the shooter opened fire. We believe multiple people hit, though there are no reports on whether or not anyone was killed in the incident. Authorities do believe that the shooter is in custody. That's early word coming in, and my chief investigative correspondent Brian Ross sitting here at the desk with us following these developments. We do believe the shooter is in custody, Brian?
That is the report, David, with, as you say, multiple injuries, no indication of how serious those injuries were. It did take place in the last 45 minutes or so at Terminal 2 in the baggage claim area. This is a particularly busy time of the year for the Fort Lauderdale airport, with the great weather down there and the cold weather in the northeast.
And for those of you just joining us, you're looking at aerial pictures there of the Fort Lauderdale airport. The airport, in fact, tweeting that there is an ongoing incident in Terminal 2. The baggage claim, as I mentioned a short time ago, as Brian just confirmed, the shooter is in custody. Let's bring in David Curley, who covers aviation for us. And David, the question is, we know it was in the baggage claim area, but it's unclear whether or not it was in the secured area, if it was behind the perimeter that usually defines whether or not it's secure before you come out to actually get your bags.
Right. It's in any terminal. You see that sign that you are leaving a secured area. You come into the baggage claim area where you see the belts, and that area is usually not as secure. That doesn't mean that there aren't police officers in the area. And these terminals at Fort Lauderdale are kind of between the runways, and they're 2 is one of the larger terminals that they have there in Fort Lauderdale. So there could have been a number of people who were collecting bags there as well, David.
And we see the people actually congregating there, it would look like, next to the plane on one of the jet bridges. Just look at the sheer number of people there, not to mention what the scene must be like inside the airport. I want to bring in Pierre Thomas, our senior justice correspondent, who's also following developments as they come in. Pierre, what have you learned?
Well, I've been on the phone with senior Homeland Security officials. They're trying to get additional information from the airport. FBI officials also are checking in to get a handle on exactly what this is. Again, with the shooter supposedly or a suspect in custody, that will move things forward pretty quickly. But again, law enforcement at the federal level are very interested in what is happening there. Again, so much concern about the holiday season, and Homeland Security has been concerned, along with the FBI, issuing bulletins that there was concern through the holidays, through Martin Luther King holiday, and also the inauguration. So that is one reason why the federal authorities are so interested in what's going on there.
We now believe, Pierre, thank you for that, that there were 9 people injured at the airport. And again, for those of you just tuning in, there is an ongoing incident. Terminal 2 baggage claim, says the airport. That's the tweet that they sent out, though it's now believed the shooter is in custody at the Fort Lauderdale airport. But as I said, multiple people actually hit by the shooter. Pierre Thomas reporting just moments ago that federal authorities are now actively investigating clearly who this person was, and the fact that they are in custody is going to help move that investigation along more quickly than perhaps we typically see in a situation like this. And you're looking at live aerial pictures, Brian. You can only imagine the people on the tarmac there, the concern they have.
That's right, David. And it's standard operating procedure to evacuate the terminal to make sure there isn't a second or a third person who might be connected to the person they now have in custody, who's being described as a shooter, motive unknown.
But we should point out, Brian, that at this point, no information leading us to believe there was more than that one particular shooter, though that is an immediate question they will ask.
That's right.
Again, 9 people believed to have been shot at the Fort Lauderdale airport this afternoon. It is unclear the extent of their injuries. If anyone perhaps died in this incident, they have not confirmed that yet. They will only say 9 injuries reported after a shooting there at Terminal 2 in the baggage claim area. We do not know whether that was in the open area when you're allowed to walk in and actually greet family members or loved ones when they're getting off of a flight, or if it actually happened beyond that demarcation where security begins, where you're coming off of a flight before you even get to your bags. Obviously, we'll learn more about that. You can see there's some movement now. Perhaps they're allowing people to now go back to the airport. But again, the shooter is in custody. Multiple people shot. Fort Lauderdale. 9 is the number they're giving us right now, and we'll continue to stay on this story. You can follow it all afternoon at abcnews.com, and of course we'll have team coverage tonight on World News Tonight. Until then, good day.
This has been a special report from ABC News.